Hello, everybody. It's time again for the SMC Journal podcast, the podcast all about performance engineering and IT today. I'm Scott Moore, your host. Welcome to another episode. Glad you're with us today. I'm going to be sharing something that you can download and use, hopefully, on any Agile performance testing project. And I want to tell you how I came up with this, and hopefully, it's something that's very useful to the performance testing communities. Before we do that, let's talk about the sponsors that make the SMC Journal podcast happen. That includes Micro Focus, the makers of LoadRunner Professional, Enterprise, and Cloud. You know, performance matters to them, and LoadRunner is one of the most used performance testing tools in the world. You can join their large community at community.microfocus.com. Make sure to check our show notes on smcjournal.com as well as the YouTube video notes itself, and you can find links to their LoadRunner family page and the YouTube playlist that talks about performance engineering using their solutions. We're also sponsored by Performance Lab. Performance Lab is a provider of premier load and performance testing services for enterprises of all industries. They focus on a robust methodology, tools, and experienced engineers. They've been around since 2008, and they've built a reputation for reliability worldwide. BoomQ is their own innovative performance testing solution. However, they do consult around many of the industry standard load testing tools like JMeter, LoadRunner, and others. Check them out at performancelabus.com. We're also sponsored by Folk Consulting. Folk offers high-quality consulting services around application performance management, operational monitoring of system performance, and that includes anything around application delivery, the management, analytics, application performance testing, monitoring, and digital management. Make sure to go to folkconsulting.com, scan that QR code, and when you check them out, tell them that Scott Moore and the SMC Journal podcast sent you, and they will take well care of you. Thank you, sponsors, for supporting the performance testing community. So, what is this PerformXLerator that I'm focused on? Well, it's short for the Performance Test Accelerator. Basically, what it means is the old way of doing performance test projects where you're in a planning stage, you would have some kind of a Word document or a way to gather documentation to put all your planning information together so you could create the perfect storm, the perfect load test for this application that you're testing. Now that includes things like infrastructure information, who to even contact about things, how to set up monitors, where are the servers, what is the technology stack, what are we talking about, Java, or what is that, what are the web servers made? Those are all kinds of technical information as well as the non-technical information. Who are the user profiles? What are these users doing? What's the average number of things that people are doing that we're going to automate? What are the proper business processes to automate? Those types of profiles and things are built by just gathering a bunch of information. Now, this comes from waterfall development, and everybody's now agile. Well, I wouldn't say everybody. Waterfall is still being done when it's appropriate to do, but Agile has changed the way many companies deliver software, and you can't take 20 to more hours of building this elaborate document to do a performance test when you've only got a 80-hour, 2-week sprint. So you've got to be able to gather the information fast. You've got to be able to kind of copy forward what you get to have the content. You still need the context. You know, in the Agile Manifesto, they never say to do away with documentation, but they're more for useful documentation and more prioritized running code versus just documenting everything. So when I talk about documentation, this is stuff that you have to have if you want to do a proper load test. I mean, you can throw numbers out there and you can just stress test an application in 15 minutes by throwing load at it, but that's not necessarily very useful. What you really want to do is create the perfect storm, and that requires information from technical project managers, people that are already doing functional testing that understand like the whys of why these test cases exist, what's important, what should be prioritized, business owners, the users, power users, and that type of thing. So I took the document that I had created for waterfall days and converted it into a spreadsheet format. And I'm going to share this Google spreadsheet with you in just a moment. So the way that I've done this, you should be able to take this, download it or export it out into an Excel spreadsheet or a CSV file. You may have to do some tweaking to it, but you just need to check the format that's expected by a product like Jira or Digital AI's Agility. I know that Agility is the one where I actually have tested this and it worked great. It is a template of over 60 different items or user stories that have been created that can be imported so that we're doing a performance test like a sprint is done. And it's a template, therefore it's not going to be ready day one for you, because the meaning of Agile is that you are agile. You're changing it depending on the situation and using what's needed. So this is definitely not something where what I'm going to present to you is written in stone. You may not need all of these user stories. You may actually need more. You may need to create your own, but it's at least a guide to get you started. And I wish that I had had this when I first started working on these types of projects, and especially if we already have a product like Jira or Agility, where I can just push one button, import them, tweak them, and within an hour or so, I've pretty much got most of my initial user stories set up, and now I can start getting people assigned to those user stories so that they give me the information. It's almost like taking pieces of a Word document, piecing them out through email and saying, hey, I need this information, or I need this done, or I need this set up. And they all kind of get done in parallel. And all of a sudden you've got this document that's created that you can work from to do the rest of your test. And also this won't slow you down if you already have some information from these user stories that have been filled in, and you know what you need to be automating. You can be working on that while the other user stories are being completed. So without further ado, let's look at the PerformXLerator here. It's just a simple Google spreadsheet in a certain type of format where we've got, I'm trying to match the Digital AI Agility format, which is title, description, acceptance criteria, and story points. That was the minimum amount you needed. So if you need to change this for another workflow tool that you're using, you should just be able, and I forgot to say, story ID and role is another, those are other two columns that we have. It may change for you depending on something else that you might be using. So just tweak it for yourself. So let's just go through this for a second. We've got obviously the ID of the user story, and there are about 61 that I've come up with myself. And this came basically extracting it from another document. Then I had some other people review this, people that I really trust who do understand Agile, and they made sure that not only was it still pertinent for Agile projects, but also that the titles and the descriptions matched the Agile format that would be expected by the team. So if you look at these roles, they're pretty easy to understand, even if you don't know right off the bat what they are. PO, PA, you'll see IM, but it actually says in the description. So as a, this very first one, let's just blow it up if we can. We'll go to 150. You'll see there in the description, as a product owner, so that's what PO stands for, is product owner. PA is performance architect, and you've got another one called, I think it's called infrastructure manager. You've also got database administrator, infrastructure manager and database administrator. So I just take those titles and I just put, 2-digit letters for them. Let's look at some of these. The description says, as a product owner, I need to know that this test is being run against the following application so I can ensure the right application and scope has been selected for the test activities. So that would basically mean that the product owner is saying, I need to know what we're actually testing, right? What is this? We'll start defining the scope from that. The second one, as a product owner, I need to know the business processes or the user stories that need to be validated so I can document the performance requirement has been met based upon test results. So then we've got like an acceptance criteria to the right of that that says the application is properly named. So I mean, that's very simple. It just means, hey, I'm going to load test product X, And then the business processes are documented and the use case flows are documented, which means somebody needs to tell me what I need to record against, what I need to automate in my product. They need to be listed somewhere. And back in the day, we would just sit there with a user. We would do screen captures. Sometimes we would put it into to a Word format or a PowerPoint. Now, just whatever format the company wants to use, they might already have that out there. They just point me to that documentation. And we also have these story points out there. Again, these are just a guess based upon the template, but that's going to change upon how much work you think is going to be involved with this. So we've assigned a generic set of story points thinking, if you just want to know what the application is that you need to test and name it, that's probably no more than 1 point, because you just need to come up with the name and know where it's at, right? With the location of where that application where you point to, maybe in a browser or something. So as you go through there, you will see the test objectives that need to be set up. Remember, we are doing a load test, so we need to limit the number of test objectives. We need to have one or no more than 2 major test objectives that we need to achieve per load test initiative. If there's a lot more objectives that need to be accomplished, there's going to be a lot more testing. The scope is going to increase, and the business needs to be aware of that will take more time. So this really helps us as we define these, limit or right size the scope of the load test that we're actually running. Let's look through here some more. We've got the peak volumes need to be defined. The expected number of concurrent users need to be defined. The failure rate that is okay to be expected as a percentage. The expected transaction step response times or baseline. So how long is too long? Is it 5 seconds? Is it 3 seconds? Service level objectives need to be, for automated user stories, are known. What are the service level objectives? The technical architecture is known, which means you need to give me something like a Visio, or you need to give me some understanding of what this is made up of. Is it a Kubernetes deployed application? It's all serverless. Is it a traditional in-tier application on bare metal? All of these things are things that we used to get. It's just in a different format and a way of doing it. So I could sit here and read all of these different user stories and what they're defined. But if you've done any load testing in the past, you're probably going to recognize the types of things that need to be gathered here. We've just made sure that in the user story, in the description, that it says as a I need, because, or to do that. And so we've tried to put that format in there so that it matches what you would typically do in an Agile project. I again wish that I had this, because it would have saved me a lot of time and a lot of projects. Once I actually got it and used it, I believe the last project I did, we imported it and I passed it off to the person, because I was a consultant and I didn't have a lot of the context, but within the first day we had this imported, tweaked, we had people assigned to the user stories, and we had an idea of how long everything was going to take. The business was very happy. There were a couple that we didn't need, and then there were a couple that we added. And as you continue to do these tests like this with different projects, you're going to find that there's going to be different needs, and it'll need to be tweaked, but you can have different versions of this. So I've got a link in the show notes here, either on the site or on the video itself. If you look into the description of the video, you'll see a very short bit.ly, it's a URL shortened link, and at the end of it says PerfXL, and you can easily download this. Everything is read only, but you should be able to download it from there and export it out as Excel or CSV, or in some of the other formats that are out there. What I'd really like from you is to know, is this useful? Was this useful to provide? Does it speed up things for you? Is the content in it useful? What have I missed, and what needs to be changed? What isn't right? Again, I've had 3 or 4 different peer reviews of this where people said it was okay, but sometimes people are busy and this is not the highest priority or whatever. But when you need it, and it's important. So the way that you get me feedback is contact me through my website, which is scottmoore.consulting, and there's the link to my LinkedIn profile as well as load tester, or you can contact me by email at help@scottmoore.consulting. Would really like to know what you think about the Performance Accelerator, and this is just my way of giving back to the community, but I want to make sure that I'm giving back something that is valuable. Even if you just want to comment on this video and tell me if it's valuable or not, and if this is the kind of thing that you want to see more of, that'd be great. If you do like this kind of content, it'd be great if you subscribe to the YouTube channel. It would let me know that I'm on the right track and I can continue making these videos for you and continuing to get sponsorships. So I'd love to hear from you about that. So enjoy the Performance Accelerator for Agile projects. Try it in Agility, try it in Jira, and then if you get a different version where you have different columns that you have to tweak, maybe get me a copy back and we'll put other versions out there, and I can put different links for everybody. So if you're using this tool, here's the format, or here's the column names that you need to use, and I'll put that in the show notes as well, and we'll just put links to everybody, and we'll keep them updated as we go. So that's it for today's show. Thank you for watching. We'll see you on the next SMC Journal podcast. Scott Moore saying bye-bye.